get one of those pods for their office. In exchange for that, they provide the leasing and kind of oversight of it, of doing that. And again, with the chamber right now, I think is being fairly selective on their replacement for Mary. You know, Mary is kind of really great out of the gate, got a lot of really good stuff done quick. For whatever reason, she's not there now, and they're being very selective on who they hire, which I don't blame them. But I think down the road, that's probably the more likely option is that we would rely on people in exchange for their spot. They would provide the oversight. Burleson's had success with the farmers market doing that. They've got one guy that he gets free space and he arranges for all of the other people to come in. He collects the money, gives to the city. It's not a huge amount. I think it's enough to cover the utilities and so forth, but it's to bring people in and for sales tax and all that stuff. And that's been my vision. I don't want to take it on in City Hall. Hopefully it'll be a long-term thing that we can get somebody in place to do that. A third-party management company, I'm not crazy about that idea because we end up with PR fallout from that. And if we're going to get blamed, I'd rather us be making decisions. And I still think that that concept will work. It's not a huge undertaking, but we'll do the maintenance internally. Have those guys help them schedule and arrange for.
Just the initial planning and design, and then we were maybe considering like getting feedback from the community and how you do it. So how we want to see it. And I like the idea of us being able to say what we would like to see to someone from Dallas or someone from the company should be like this. They go to Dallas for that.
What's the number of parking spaces here? Do we know that?
So the original plan, we were actually over, I think that we called for 52 parking spaces in our ordinance and we had 74. And then we also, from the very beginning, we had planned to use the YMCA parking for overflow parking if we needed it. And then it was our engineer too, when I was speaking with him, they had suggested maybe later on down the road, we pave that road because it could also be an extension of the fire lane to go out that road along the apartments. And then it's wide enough, you could have that, and then you could have some parking up against the fence.
I think eventually that will happen is you'll have 2 rows of head-in parking. And then another way out. Coming down beside the detention pond.
Yeah.
And then have head-in parking and a 18 or 20 foot fire lane coming out to Joshua Station Boulevard. Which I think is that's probably the phase 2 parking project right there.
Now, don't take that site plan that I gave you to heart. That was my attempt, my feeble attempt in architecture on PowerPoint, because that was my idea, because I just came up with that last week of trying to revamp. Because having the parking in the front really affords us to have more parking, because I didn't push it all the way out. So we can definitely have a lot more parking in the front.
What in the stage concert area do we know? Area?
No, that's something we'll have to know. It's like standing room. I don't think it's not like indoors to where there's like an occupation. I don't think, but I can double check on that.
Okay, so
It's a pretty big space.
With those questions, like, once again, I absolutely love the idea. I think it would be great for Joshua. I'm opposed to granting that money at this point in time without a business plan. I mean, the basics of if I'm going to spend money in my household, I want to know what I'm spending it for, what I'm getting, what allocations are, because I don't want to be 2 years down the road and look back and say, oh, we can get 250 people in the concert space, and we've ticked off most of our citizens because they can't get there. If they can't fit, we don't have enough parking. So I can't in good conscience agree to allocate it without a a firm site plan with multiple phases, what those multiple phases are gonna be, that we consider at least. That they fit in there, and that, we have a business plan for how we're gonna do it, maintain it, and how that goes.
And we do have an official site plan. We have an architectural site plan and an engineered site plan. But I just brought this in for you to see. I mean, he's got everything on there with the parking, the original. But now that we're gonna change it up, I got with him last week and he's gonna redo his part. So, I mean, everything is like, we have been moving, but I don't want you to think that this is just something I threw on there.
Yeah.
We've been going through the engineering stages, the drainage, the topo, the geotech, all of that stuff is in the process right now.
Maybe I'm over the top, I don't know, but I would want to see that before I vote to spend up to $3 million.
So what are you thinking as far as costs for phase one? So phase one is gonna be the parking. The parking in the front, we have to do that because of that gas line, correct?
Correct.
So as far as phase one, it's like for parking, the retail containers, and then that includes the food truck area, and you have the bi-level bar. It has already been of groups that I can tell.
It's only gonna be one. We're only gonna have one bar, and that's why I
Right, but
moved
is
it
that
toward the event venue. No, so I wanted to be clear, we're only doing one phase. That's what I'm presenting to you. That phase one is gonna be this whole project. There is no phases anymore. It's the whole, we got rid of phase two.
So phase two is not considering the extra parking.
No, not at this moment. That would be something we would come down the line. I mean, I guess if we want to call it phase
I
two,
mean,
we could.
yeah, I think that was just thrown
Yeah.
out as a hypothetical. That could be a phase two to be done later. If it was necessary. I think if you take the parking ride and the YMCA parking together, you're probably gonna have 150, 160 parking spaces out there. Without the piece in the middle, without the parking along the detention pond. People can park there now. We've done it there for Halloween and stuff, the way, provided weather's right. I mean, you could park 60, 70 cars in between that space now very easily.
What will be that access from that parking area to say this outdoor thing? Right now, I know they're playing soccer and stuff down in that area, or at least they were for a while.
Yeah, the YMCA plays soccer up in that front part right beside the parking ride, but there's still room for a drive approach coming out of that cul-de-sac. It wouldn't affect that.
So in essence, people could park there or park up front and still have access either way to this.
So, for the- So tonight we gave you. What's the process? Where are you at?
I'm in the
What is
engineering.
their plan? What is their timeline looking at? What are they? What is currently our goal waiting for approval?
So the slowest part is the beginning of construction is always the slowest, the time consuming, because the engineering, the architecture, all the drainage, all that. That's the process we're in right now. They're going through, they're doing all the site plan, they're checking all the topo, they're doing all that.
That
Culverts.
was what we approved.
Correct. Yes, and so that's in the plan right now. I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of the adjustments we're making to stay under budget. And this is the adjustments that we have made, so we're not spending, an exorbitant amount of money for this. And trying to keep the costs down by keeping more green space. So really, once we get closer, I'll come back to you and get approval to spend more. I wasn't asking to spend any more. This is just a resolution to finalize the contract. with with the construction company and the architect to move forward. It's a contract, it's a design build contract and the contract with the engineer.
It's a professional services agreement basically. We've not done one in it. It's just to keep them, basically it's a retainer, keep them on the job. You're not holding up anything tonight by asking for the things that were asked. Yeah, I mean, you're not slowing anything down, so it's not a big deal to.
I think that was.
Yes.
You're not holding.
To make sure it was being within the that's, and those things are in process.
And that was covered in the 100,000 that you allowed me to spend.
Okay.
And I have only spent, I think, 19 so far with engineering and architectural services.
So I think my recommendation be is that we table this tonight. And we'll take a look we'll get a firm design down, a new site plan. Based on what Molly's new vision is. And then give us some time to look at the different options for the business plan, leasing opportunities, how that stuff might look. And then bring that back to address those. And we'll check into the parking, we'll check into the I know that places of assembly have requirements for how many people you can put in. We'll get the fire marshal to crunch those numbers for us. That won't be a problem to do at all.
Because ultimately, if we were to make that commit, I mean, if we were to make that approval, I know it's still a professional services agreement, but we're committing to them spending some time, we're eventually going to be. I mean, we're committing to them that we're doing something.
Yes.
Correct, which is essentially going to be, we have to approve some funding, which is going to eventually have to go to council. I know we have talked about this a lot, and we have seen a lot in executive session and everything. I think, and I do understand your hesitancy at blowing this up, but I think we're at the time where we need to do a presentation and lay it out and get everybody excited about it or get feedback or whatever. I think we need to, outside of executive session, show everybody what you put together. Like that video that you posted on LinkedIn, which is floored me. And I understand that we want to be
Yes.
mindful of what other cities may come in and take. But if we're ready to really start moving forward on this, then let's go ahead and, because if anything,
Well, I think the cat's out of the bag anyway. People know it's coming. So yeah,
You're right.
so I don't think there's.
The reason why I stepped back a little, because as soon as I post that, because it's all about trying to draw attention to the city. Like, this is the things we're working on, and it blew up. So much so, I had other cities reaching out to me. Would you mind talking to us? We love this idea. And I'm like, not before we get it done. And so I had to really take a step back, because there were some that they're pushing hard. They were emailing me constantly. They're like, we'd really love to talk to you. And part of me was like, I'm like, back off, it's my project.
Yeah, I get that, but if we're gonna make this commitment, then let's just. Cause we all want this. I think we all agree, we really want this. So let's go all in, let's get it out there and, this is what we're wanting to do. This is how we're going to do it. Because the same presentation is gonna need to be made to council, which is where you have more opportunity for people to pay attention to it, but let's just get ready to just show everybody what we want to do and go from there. I think you're going to have a much more successful response if we really show everybody your vision, because I think everybody who set up here was excited.
Okay. So one thing I do want to mention, I can definitely do that and do the animated. The animated is going to veer just a little bit from what the new plan is. Because I don't want to tell you what that plan came in cost wise. I about choked, and I was like, no, that's not happening. And I called him, I said, you've got to be under this amount. So I just want to let you know, though, that I am very frugal, and I'm trying to, or we're even working with some other, prefab, because the containers, it's very costly. It's like 60,000 per container to outfit. And I just think that's ridiculous. And I know the whole concept, but if I can get a company to make it look like that, and we're paying a third, that's the goal. And so I've been doing all the groundwork myself because we don't have an official contract. Farming out all this stuff and getting the best prices we can. So, the animated video, it's gonna be pretty darn close, but it's just not gonna be the mirrored. It won't show the event because I don't want to spend another chunk of money to have him redo it, but I think we can get the gist through without, you just won't see the event venue in the back on the animated rendering. But I can definitely do that.
When we come back to this, we'll also have some kind of overview of the budget, like what part of the 3 million is for.
We can try, you can try. But you never know, because it changes 30 days, that's why like vendors or construction or companies, a lot of times they won't give you, it's only good a week. And so that's what we're keeping an eye on. And then I'm making relationships with companies that already have relationships with concrete, people to try to get things a little bit cheaper. So it's one of these things where I'm just gonna have to go in and we're gonna have to do bids and we're just gonna have to really cut and try to do what we can to save as much money as we can.
Well, I appreciate your work. I think we all do, and I do not want it to come across negative at all. I think Sully's right. We love the idea. I just want to make sure that we're protecting you guys at the city, that you're not putting more load on you guys, and that we've thought through these things so that when people are coming, somebody's going to drop and complain regardless, but that is really a great opportunity to come and have fun.
And if I may, on the resolution, when I wrote this resolution, I wrote it to approve the project itself. It also ratifies the 2 agreements that was previously approved. So with this, put it on next agenda is what I'm guessing. And do we want to have a public hearing since this project started prior to the amendment to the EDC bylaws? Yes. Okay.
What would you like us to do here?
We can just table this item to next month.
Okay.
So,
And then on
right,
the
yeah.
agenda
And then we can
next
have,
month,
correct,
Table it with Mike's recommendations. Can we add that?
absolutely.
Proper site plan and business development plan of some sort.
And this is for next month's agenda, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
feasible to ask for some kind of breakdown of budget, like? I know you said it's gonna change all the time, but are
Yeah.
we talking about like half of the budget is for the containers and construction and half of it is for, I have no idea. So like at the end of this, if someone says, well, how much does it cost to do a project like what you guys are doing? $3 million worldwide. I have no idea. Like, no.
Yes,
I'd
and
like to be able to.
I can definitely have them put together something of what it's gonna, like, I already have a cost of what it's gonna take for the containers that we are building. I've already had 2 companies send in their bids for that. And so we're saving a lot of money instead of getting the actual shipping containers. So yes, I can piece together something like that to get an idea of what it will cost.
And you've got the staging and the infrastructure of sound and all that included. Like for instance, Burleson Parks and Recs have a $250,000 portable stage. What is it going to look like?
Yeah.
What is that going to be?
We will have one too, but not $250,000.
Okay.
And you won't have to pay for it.
So if we can get a motion to table this item until September with, for staff to bring back a site plan, have a business plan and a proposed budget and have the required public hearing.
We have a motion.
I'll make that.
Do we have a second? A second. In favor?
Item number 5, discuss consider possible action on the fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget.
So this is the first draft of the budget, which you guys will see tonight, council will see on Thursday. We're projecting revenues of sales tax revenues of $700,000, which is not quite as much as we projected for last year, but we have seen a slowdown where we're no longer in double digit percentages above, we're down into single, but it is staying pretty level. So that's a pretty conservative number. It's a $75,000 increase over last year. We're also projecting interest income of $20,000, miscellaneous revenues of $90,000, which is the transfer of the facade grant money that's left over from this year. We'll continue that program the next year. We've had 2 applications come in. And so there's $90,000 remaining there, and that will transfer over into this year's budget. And then the proceeds from there's nothing disposal. So total revenues projected of $810,000, which is an increase of $84,500 over last year. Expenditures, Joshua Station development, most of those are just little incidental things that may come up in our as we continue to develop the property that we have. That money is just kind of there as a holding place, and if something were to come up. The utilities, $26,000. That's to keep the power on, the water irrigating, and the lawn maintenance. There's a projected $500,000 in here for container park funding, should that proceed. And that number also can change, but without knowing where exactly the budget's going to fall, that's more of a starting point. Then you've got your normal everyday expenses, the 380 agreement, which are the reimbursements to. Right now, the only agreements you have are to Starbucks. The parking lot 380 that we had downtown with Rumfield, that's paid off and done. So that's the only 380 you have. And the facade grant funding, as we spoke of earlier, we have still kept the $18,000 for the Joshua Chamber of Commerce money, which they still have not asked for. But that is still there in case they do come to the board and ask for it. We expect at some point they will. But they, I think rightly so, are waiting until they get kind of back on the track. I thought we were there for a short period of time, and then with Mary leaving. So we'll see how that works out. The downtown infrastructure money is a carryover. That is the proposed Type A portion for the 16-inch water line with the Johnson County Special Utility District. The administrative costs, training and travel, dues, subscriptions. Molly really doesn't wear uniforms, but we do provide her some shirts that have city bling on them. Not one today, but and then administrative fees to cover various things on the admin side. Then you've got your debt service for the bonds and debt that you have. That'll total $252,000, almost $253,000 this year. You don't have anything slated for capital improvements at this point. $15,000 for community events, for participation in the Joshua United, for the Christmas stuff, for there's been talk about street dance or two, just community things that'll be going on, partnerships with the chamber, what that funding is for. Transfer to general fund are the salaries and training and travel and stuff for your employee, $1 million Molly. Maybe we should say $500,000 Molly now. Total expenditures of $1.480 million. All goes as approved. And of course, that will be with the allocation of some fund balance that you currently have should some of these projects proceed. It's not a whole lot of change from last year, other than money that may transfer if the container park, if that construction develops in this coming fiscal year, which we think that it will. So that's the increase in revenue that you see pretty much in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions, and this is a moving document until the end of September. When it has to be approved and in place by October 1st. So it'll come back to you next month to look at again, just to make sure that nothing has changed. That may give us time to plug in some accurate numbers with what we're finding. Once we start to get those numbers together, I might go ahead and make that adjustment on here so that you'll see it next month before it has to be formally approved. And you may recall your budget has to be approved not only by this board, but also by the city council. That's part of their budget document. Happy to take any questions. Well,
If we can take, if you can do a motion to accept a proposed budget.
no.
It puts it on record.
I'd say next. No. Well, I'd rather be safe and put these numbers in,
Okay.
so I don't have to amend it. So if it's okay with y'all,
No, it's the proposed budget, not the budget.
do I?
It's the proposed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is the proposed. Did we get the wording wrong?
No, that's what we have. I'm saying the motion with them to accept this one, but you don't want them to accept
No,
this one.
I don't think we need to.
All right. Then. Item D, any future agenda items? We added.
I wanted to maybe bring up a conversation for us about people calling my community, the communities of the city to find out things they want us to do. That's, it's like with our economic development.
They're gonna tell you they want a Whataburger. And a sit-down restaurant. Those are the two big things.
Molly really needs an office because with that, if you would be more productive and you're. Are you still working?
No, I've been back in City Hall for,
We've
yeah, I've been back for a long time, a while.
reassigned and squeezed everybody in. We moved the copy room.
Yeah.
Now she actually has, some space. We squeezed the copy room back here into the kitchen, and so we moved development services back over here. It made more sense. And then because we didn't need, they had smaller offices next door. It fits better for finance and HR to get them over there. They have little walk-in traffic. Just made more sense to get everybody moved over here. So we made the switch back, and we were able to bring Molly back
I'm
over
happy
here
to be back.
so we can keep our eye on her.
And how often do you send newsletters out?
It's quarterly for the mail out and then monthly for the electronic.
Oh, yeah, it's
Because I would say you probably want to time it with
oh, yeah.
when a newsletter is coming out. Because one of the two. That's something you could figure out what kind of verbiage for survey, just to kind of give people, you don't want it to.
Like what they want, things they want to see, what kind of businesses, restaurants. It'd be pretty easy. I'm sorry, there's
No commentary allowed.
no line in this meeting. You can ask, what is your question?
How long has it been since you've done one of those?
Sorry, could you get to the podium and speak to the microphone? I think the last time that we did a survey of the community here was when we had a private, I think it was probably Jack Thompson with O'Rossi. Did
What's
some
the one
surveys
without?
on, it's been quite a while
Okay.
ago. So I think we could
Okay.
very easily put together one fairly, and we could either do it, advertise it, link it to the website or Facebook or both, or you send it out in the next
Yeah.
newsletter.
Nothing says I have to do it quarterly, That's just our agreement
You
to
can
do
send
this.
out your own newsletter if you want to.
Yeah.
What?
You can send out your own newsletter if you want to. You don't have to tie it to the city.
You know, over time.
Make a motion if you need to.
I think we could do it under marketing right now. If y'all want to do it, mail out a survey, just your own. We could, that's not a big deal. We can do that.
So?
It's not a big deal, is it, Alice?
No, but
It's just follow.
I think we qualify the election, we can take it together and
Outside
split
of,
the cost.
outside of meeting, I
Actually,
think Molly had resources for this, so I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, between Molly and Alice, they could come up with,
Oh, yeah.
with
oh, yeah.
whatever makes the most sense. I mean, you have an idea of the verbiage that you would like to drive this inquiry. So, it's not,
And several cities have done it, so that can give us an example, kind of which direction to
Yeah,
go.
we can find lots of things.
Okay.
We can do that.
Great idea.
great, yeah.
You people are talking tonight. I'm impressed. Very good. It's only taking you a year and a half to speak up.
We don't know what's loud and what's not loud.
We encourage conversation. So I appreciate the feedback. You really do.
Well, I mean, and y'all did the B board, y'all did a survey for the parks, so it's. That makes sense.
And we got a lot of response for that.
I mean, we get, do you remember?
Oh, goodness, it was up in a couple hundreds. We've gotten over almost 400 just in trash.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, well, I'm just correcting if it has to be an executive session. Did we have anything back from our special call meeting? The topic that we discussed? Okay.
No, unfortunately.
Just those two magic words.
We adjourn on time.